This video will explain the use of Cami. Cami is a tool that we can use for online PDF annotation and editing. This allows us to use cloud storage to save our PDFs, and then from the cloud storage we can then annotate and edit PDFs. There's a lot of different advantages to this. One of them being if you need to moderate a lot of work, if you can create a drive folder where people can upload their PDFs into that folder. You don't have to download something to your computer. You can just simply edit it directly on the cloud, and then they obviously have access to that same file. This saves a bit of time and makes the whole process quite a bit easier. Alternatively, what you can do is you can create PDFs that are fillable and have learners complete these PDFs online. This requires a little bit more work because it requires for all the learners to also have the Cami extension installed, and you'll need to create copies of these files for the learners. This can be done quite easily using something like Google Classroom, where you create an assignment and use that tool to create a new PDF document for each learner. This requires a little bit more legwork, so when we want to start off with Cami, we simply want to be able to open up PDFs and annotate them. So the first one that I'm going to look at is this completed worksheet. If I right click on this, because I've already installed the Cami extension, there's a link to there's going to be a link in the comment section where you can see where and how you install the extension. Please note, extension means that it's an additional feature that we install straight into Google Chrome. So once we've installed the Cami extension, what will happen is any PDF that we are going to access on Google in Chrome will have the option to open with Cami. On Google Drive, it's very easy. We simply right-click on the file that we want to open, and we select Open with, Annotate with Cami. Now, if you double-click on the file, you'll notice that it does not open in Cami necessarily, but you still have this Open with feature at the top. So if we click on that, when we simply say Annotate with Cami, it's going to load the Cami reader and open up the file for me. Now, one of the great advantages over here, as you can see, the PDF that I've scanned is upside down. Now, I wanted to do this so that I can show you how easy it is to then just flip it around. The first thing Cami will do, if it is a PDF that is not in text format already, so just a simple scan, it tells us that it's picked up some text in this PDF and it wants to run an OCR so that it can recognize the text. Very straightforward. If we click on Run OCR, it now goes through the system. It's going to try and pick up all the writing as far as possible. Now remember, this is based on how clear your scan is going to be. If it's a very unclear scan, it's difficult for it to pick up. But as you can see, this one has picked it up quite easily. And as an extra added advantage, it just flips the whole thing around for us quickly and easily. Now that I have it over here, I can actually select text and I can do certain things with the text if I need to. Now let's just run through some of the tools that we have, the functions that we have. You'll see there are quite a few of them that have this little lock on them. This is the free version of Cami, so there are features that are disabled. But a lot of the basic features that we need are active for anyone on the free version of this. So the first one we have something called Markup, which is essentially just a highlighter. The highlighter you can use in two different ways. We can either highlight the text or we can use a box highlighter. If we just highlight text, so because we've run an OCR, it's easy for us to highlight the text. What it does now, once the text has been highlighted, you can see I can hover over this. I can, if I wanted to, I can now add a comment and I can say, this is a great worksheet. Again, there's a microphone over here, but the voice typing is restricted to the paid for version. So there I've got a simple comment that I've added to that section. Box highlighter, if I want to highlight something else, I can just highlight the sample student. If I want to, I can add comments to this. If I don't want to, I don't have to add comments to it. So I can just highlight certain things. Then if you just want to add a comment directly, so let's say you don't want to highlight, you want to go straight into the comment, we've already created this little box for us. If I click on the comment, the text comment, and I click right next to it, I can add a comment to this. Please make sure to give your real name. And I've added a little comment to that. Now, one of the great things about this is it uses the built-in comment features of Google Drive. So whoever's going to view this document does not actually have to have the same, does not have to have Cami installed on their side. They will still be able to view the comments. Then something else that is very useful is the ability to create a text box. So if I wanted to create a text box somewhere, I can add here when I say the wind, and I want to just add this, please elaborate. Now with the text box, you'll see we've got our basic editing, our basic formatting tools up here. One of those that's unfortunately locked is the font. So there's only one font available in the free version, that's Times New Roman, but you can change your font color. If you want to, you can add a background fill to it. You can add highlighting. You can highlight it in certain ways. So there's a lot of different options when we're adding little boxes, and you can click anywhere and it immediately goes into a box. You've got lots of different colors that you can use, font size that you can change depending on what you want to do with the text box. Now, something that's also very useful is the drawing tool, because what we want to get around to is being able to mark some of these things. So if we look at our question, which human trait or quality is given, it whispers, and we feel it's correct, we can just tick it like that. What is being personified? Flowers being personified. They are happy. What is being personified? The desert. In this instance, it is wrong. As you can see, it takes a while to just get used to marking with a mouse. One tip that I can give you is if you're on a laptop, it is a lot easier when you're using a touchpad. And of course, if you've got a stylus, marking like that is by far the easiest way of doing it if you want to do it digitally. Now, if we've marked this wrong, what we can do is we can either use a comment to explain why it is wrong, or we can add a text box. Either way, it depends entirely on what you want to choose. Please note when you're drawing, you've got different options that you can use here. You can set it to a very thick pen if you want to. You can add transparency. You can change the color to a number of different things if you want to. You can actually even define a lot of different colors that you can pick from. So you've got a lot of options and things that you can use in here. And of course, there are shapes. Shapes I'm not going to explain in detail, but here you can draw your lines, you can draw circles, you can draw blocks and rectangles. So if you're working with a document that already has content on it, I'll show you that in a minute, then it's easy to add certain elements to that document. And of course, the eraser, if you feel that you need to change something, you haven't done something correct. So let's say we're going to change that cross, make it a little bit more neat. And then obviously we can see this one is also wrong because it is referring to the wrong thing. Right, so that is just very quickly how we can open up a document in Cami and annotate some of the things in it. One of the nice things about it, you'll see here at the top when it says saved, undo, etc., it saves automatically to Google Drive. As I'm editing, it saves to Google Drive, but if you're just uncertain whether or not it's saved, you can click over here. It says for unsaved changes, so it hasn't saved my most recent things. We can just click on save now, just to ensure that it actually goes and saves the most recent things that we have done. Now, if we go back to Google Drive, we can either, if we look at our sample worksheet, this one we could just open and straight with Cami, because this one has not been filled in at all. If our students have Cami installed, they can just open it with Cami on their side, and they can just simply hit the text box, and then they can start typing. Right, and then they can start entering the information. I think it's quite useful, perhaps, rather if it's just a screen like this where we've got a whole bunch of text that is black, to maybe just tell them, change the font color that it's easier for you to see the difference. So what is being personified, we can click over here, the wind, and which human trait is it being given, the ability given the ability to whisper, etc., etc. So in this way, they can complete this entire document and then submit it back to you. Again, this is a little bit of more tricky element to Cami, so I wouldn't suggest that you start with this, but this is an option if you've got PDF documents and you would like your learners to be able to submit it digitally. It's a tool that works quite well when we use it like that. Now, the last thing we want to look at, if you've already got a PDF that has lots of content on it and you would like to turn it into a slightly more interactive, thing, you can see over here I've got my Othello worksheet, which I've already made a few scratches on. Let's just quickly erase all those things. So all the basic tools that we used, we can now use again. So if we want to insert ellipsis to highlight Othello specifically, then we can add that little circle over there and draw a little arrow over here. And we can add a text box where we say, this guy is really important. As an example, we can also, if we wanted to, highlight some of the text. Let's say we're going to take Iago over here. We're going to highlight the text. We want to add a comment. What works quite nicely is you can actually add a link in here. So if you've got a link to for example, a more detailed bio of the character, then you could add it over here. I'm not going to add a link to that now, so I'm only going to add Google, so you can see it actually adds it as a link. So when learners open the PDF, they'll be able to see comments on the side, links that they can click on to add a little bit of interactivity to the slide itself. Now, if we go back to our folder, if we open up the completed worksheet, just to show you what it looks like, now you'll see this is not opening up in the Kami Reader, but you can see all the different annotations that I've made are available, as well as the comments over here. Now, this makes it a lot easier for you to access PDF documents, edit them online, and then without having to go through the effort of having to download them and then upload them again and send them along to the correct person. It's easy enough to create a folder, give people access, the necessary access to that, let them upload their files and edit these files directly on a cloud-based platform